Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson, and welcome to Books That Make You Better. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at a book called The Way of the Seal, and it's written by Mark Devine. Mark's a former commander in the U.S. Navy SEALs. He's retired, and he wrote this book a few years ago. And I think most people that pick it up think it's going to be a book on being a Navy SEAL. There's some parts, to be sure, on being a Navy SEAL, but the book is not all about being a Navy SEAL. The Way of the SEAL, I've read the updated and expanded edition of it. He has a number of principles that he discusses in The Way of the SEALs, but one of the things you got to know is, well, number one, Mark has a podcast. A very well-renowned podcast. I believe it's called The Unbeatable Mind, and I listen to it all the time. I just think of it as Mark Devine's sort of show, but definitely The Unbeatable Mind is what it's all about. And to be honest, The Way of the SEAL is kind of the predecessor to that sort of topical area. So it's not just, being a Navy SEAL. It really is about leadership. A lot of the things that, this is called Books That Make You Better, because that's kind of where my interest is. There's a wealth of knowledge and books out there in a lot of different areas. And what I find is that Mark's done a fantastic job of bringing in a lot of the tools, techniques, and mental models that I discuss in some of my videos and some of the background research that he's done, but he's also lived it having been a Navy SEAL. So I think, myself, I talk about construction and project management and business management a lot. He's run businesses. He was a certified accountant, did an MBA before becoming a SEAL. He was really kind of well-rounded person, studied Zen, yoga, and all kinds of different forms of yoga, and really meditation on all these other aspects. And they kind of all come into this book. Now, you know what? For some people, they just want one topic. And if you want just one single topic, probably not the book for you. Like if you're looking for in-depth on full out being a Navy SEAL and just that core part, not for you. But if you want a book that talks about somebody who has obviously a lot of grit, resilience, and focus, smarts, has learned a lot through the process, and has brought in very well-read individual, a lot of sources. And if you ever watch his podcast, I'll leave a link to the podcast in the notes. It can be found on iTunes. He's got really, really good speakers and researchers that he brings in for his interviews. So I think, from that perspective, I really like it. Keeping to the book called Range, Epstein's book on breadth and the advantages of having breadth. This book definitely has breadth to it, discussing a lot of the different points and where's your starting point, establishing your set point and where you're starting from, and really being able to develop a focus. You can just go through these principles pretty much one by one and get a really good sense of what he's talking about and how it aligns very well. If you're a project manager or a business manager, a lot of these points will help you for sure in your ability to lead people, to be able to be resilient in tough times, to be able to be agile and quickly respond to changes that occur in your external environment. Well, Navy SEAL, that's where he can bring in some really good stories, and he does. Things happen and how you have to be able to pivot and how you have to be able to adjust. And he has a lot of information on some of the great tools I'll mention on the next slide. Do today what others won't. Well, how do you get to be a Navy SEAL? You've got to be able to focus. You got to be able to do it now. You got to be able to stay the course. So most people don't. And that's why most people aren't that successful. Forging mental toughness and how you can develop those skills. Failure, everybody fails. Doesn't matter who you are. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get yourself back to work, get yourself back on track, get yourself back on the mission, as Mark would say. build your intuition, your understanding, a little bit on basically, having a sense for what's going on and being in flow, and think offense all the time, and really sort of being on the offensive. And we're in a very fast moving world, and it's helpful when you don't get stuck in a rut and you're forward looking and you develop a quick vision. And when things change on you, you're quick to change. So I think in all those ways, this is one of those books that, I before doing this video, I read it a number of years ago, and I have it on my iPad, so it definitely wasn't that long ago. But I reread the highlights that I put through it to prepare for this. But I listen to Mark all the time on his podcast, so I kind of know the way he discusses things. And he's got this phrase. The first time I heard this phrase, I hear it a lot now, but the first time I ever heard it was from him, that the SEALs use this phrase, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. What else do you need to say? In construction, think about it. The construction industry, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's measure twice and cut once. That's take our time, and that will save us time in a lot of ways, than rather sort of going at things chaotically. But at the same time, you're in a fast-moving environment, so he does get into a lot of how SEALs have to be able to deal with things. Their missions, they have a mission, and things change very quickly when you're on the ground. There's this phrase that Shane Parrish uses from Farnham Street, and it's basically the map is not the territory. And I kind of think about it that way too when we're doing construction drawings. The drawings are not the building. They're close, but there's always differences. And unless you're actually walking that site and observing things, you're missing things. So he brings in, and this again, there was a lot of key takeaways that I had that at the time, they were kind of introduced to me. I really hadn't heard of VUCA. And again, this is something that's become more pronounced more recently, pandemics and other things. It really sort of heightens those things. But and I've done other videos on this topic, but volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And he really dives into that because it's really a SEAL thing, military background thing. And for sure, all the examples talk about volatility and uncertainty and complexity and not having transparency. It definitely fits in there. And again, pandemics and other things that we have occur in this world on a yearly basis. For sure, you can go back over the last 20 years and you can pick a whole pile of global kind of events that occurred that really impacted the world, from the financial crisis of 2008 to the Twin Towers in the early 2000s and the pandemic. We definitely live in a VUCA world, and in project management and business management, we have a lot of those skill sets that if we adopt them, they can be tools that help us be more successful and more resilient in dealing with it. So the book is very good at that. Also, the whole aspect of cognitive biases, which is obviously, if you really want to dive into a book on that, I would recommend Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, but really introduces it and does a good job of that. Rapid planning models, how to be able to iterate and how to be able to respond to changes very, very quickly. So that whole fast twitch iteration, as he calls it in the book, where he sort of describes that in previous decades, business was kind of taught slow twitch. We got to plan this out. We got to be very methodical and thorough. But sometimes you have to be quicker, right? And when you look at a fast changing environment like we have had with the scaling of apps and programs and that sort of thing, very much get it out there and make the adjustments as it's in motion, rather than try to get the perfect software. Meanwhile, everybody beats you to the market and has fixed it already. So fast twitch iteration and how that can play out. And obviously in construction, we tend to be a little bit more methodical because when we make mistakes, it's very expensive. But at the same time, we still have to be looking at, are there ways to be able to use technologies to be able to shorten schedules, lower costs, deliver at higher quality levels. Those are just some examples of typical project management applications of time, cost, quality. He brings in the Uda Loop, which again is another military aspect of observe, orient. So observe what's going on, orient yourself, decide what you're going to do, and then act. And it's this loop that keeps going around, almost like a PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, act. But an Uda loop is very sort of quick and responsive to suit military sort of objectives. Particularly, I think it was, I might get the name wrong, John Boyd with the Air Force that developed the Uda Loop, which again has been developed widely in business applications over the last 15, 20 years. As I said, Mark's a lot of breadth in this video. So box breathing. So if you're into starting to do meditation, I actually found that pretty good because I've been practicing meditation myself in a number of ways. And box breathing is kind of like you're breathing in for 4 seconds, you're holding for 4 seconds, then you're breathing out for 4 seconds, right? And it goes in this sort of box, right? So it's like 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out, hold it, and it goes in this box. The reason he describes that being very good is, well, number one, it causes you to focus more on those steps. I find that when I was starting out doing meditation, just breathing in and breathing out, you start thinking about everything else. And that's the hard part about meditation, is being able to focus, right? And not start thinking about all these other things. Well, because you've got sort of those 4 steps, it helps you to just stay on those 4 steps to keep the cycle going. And then when you get better, you can do other things. But I did find that as a helpful exercise that way. He also introduced something he called the direct process, which he has a lot of acronyms. And the only reason I found that to be a pretty good lead in with that acronym, because at the time I was writing a textbook, and it kind of led me to use direct for a way of recovering project schedules. You know, detect, look more immediately, reduce, experiment, basically communicate, get confidence, and get the team working together. And you do all these things, and it works out. It just kind of had a light bulb go off. So I really appreciated that direct process that he said in his book, which is for a different purpose, but I thought I'd mention that. You know, you're looking for something that's got a lot of breadth in this book, but it gives you a lot of ideas. That's my point with that. It gives you a lot of different ideas that you can apply in different ways. And he also sources a lot of where he gets the information from, so that can lead you, if you want to go deeper into something, like I said, thinking fast and slow, you definitely can. And select the right target. So again, it's another one. He calls it FITS acronym. So FITS. So is it a fit for you? Is this target important? Is the timing right? Is it simple enough for you to do? And it's, again, a lot of takeaways, good points. I wouldn't say that there's any one thing that's super in depth. So it's sort of the breadth range. And there's always this debate, you know, am I going to be the best at this, or am I going to have breadth? And if I combine these different things, is that going to put me in a stronger position? So this book definitely fits into the second of the examples. And I believe that it is a book that can make you better. And I think following some of his podcast examples, different shows are different ways, depends who's being interviewed, but it's not all about being a Navy SEAL. There's a lot of stuff in there that is quite helpful for use in the real world. So hopefully this is a book that will make you better. And if you want, you can check out Goodreads too. It's another source that I always go to and read the reviews on. I thought I'd check out the reviews before I did this video. It's scored almost a 4, which is very good. I think out of 5. There's some people that would say that because it had so many things, it didn't really hit it for them. But others that said because it had so many things, it was the perfect hit. So you can read what you want, and it depends what you're after in that respect. But I really like the book, and I think it's a great introduction for you to apply in the real world. Lots of learning here. So I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next edition of Books That Make You Better. Bye for now.